eEnforce e-commerce network for professionals by professionals.
So right now I'm going to go over what I call the cardinal rules and nevers of e-commerce brand protection. If you do nothing else, just make sure that you don't do these things, okay? Or do, however this winds up being worked out. But effectively, what are the cardinal rules and the things that you really have to have structured? For one is you have to have an existing reseller policy. You have to be able to define who is and isn't allowed to sell on third-party marketplaces, what they're allowed to do and how to structure that, and come up with a solid policy and program. This isn't something you want to wing. This is something that you want to have done correctly and understanding what your objectives are on the platforms. Number two, I say this all the time, you want to seriously restrict and limit the number of third-party resellers that you authorize on the third-party marketplaces. I've always been able to see that the sales on these marketplaces, it's a finite number of sales. So if you've got $1 million in sales, just to give it a big round number, happening per year on Amazon, introducing 100 more sellers fighting over that piece of the pie doesn't increase your sales. It actually just dilutes the amount of sales that each one has, and effectively you're now trying to manage a herd of feral cats versus maintaining maximum margins and profitability in sales and capitalizing on your brand's equity on that platform. So my personal preference and advice always is to only have one authorized reseller on the platform, whether it's you, whether you allow someone, hire someone, doesn't matter. Keep your circle small. Number three, have a MAP policy. A MAP policy, in my opinion, is extremely important. It helps you outline what people are allowed to sell for, not just in the third-party marketplaces, because most of you are going to listen, I'm sure, and keep it to one. But you want to also make sure that anyone who's not in that area is, if they're selling in their storefronts or on their own retail websites that they're allowed to sell on, or however that was outlined in your first step. You want to make sure that it's outlined what they can sell for, how they can do special sales and incentives, or other things like that. And be able to make sure that you're on top of that with monitoring it and enforcing it. Enforcement, that brings up the fourth point. That MAP policy, those online reseller policies, they're absolutely worthless unless somebody is actually out there monitoring it and enforcing it, and you have to do it fairly and impartially so that you can make sure that everybody is getting the same equal treatment across the board. Number five, you need to not depend on the marketplace to do your job for you. What these really boil down to is, unless this is a criminal black market, criminal remanufacturing of your product, then anything that's happening on the marketplace between you and an unauthorized seller is a civil dispute between yourself and another company. The marketplaces cannot get involved. They have no judicial authority to render a civil judgment over two different parties in a civil dispute. So you need to make sure that whatever you're doing is pursuant to federal legal guidelines, under the advice of an attorney, and that you're doing it off the platform. Whenever you do something on the platform that doesn't pertain to their standards, policies, or rules, you can get yourself in serious trouble on the platform or from the seller. There's all sorts of repercussions you can wind up in. Just simply don't do it. Take the direct path and keep yourself on the right side of the fence. Number six, make sure that you know who your target is. If you've got people that are violating your policies, you need to make sure that you are verifying and validating the true owners of those accounts so that you're not mistakenly misidentifying someone in the process. You need to make sure that you go after the appropriate target. Remember, going back a step or two, these are civil disputes between two companies. You need to make sure that you have verified the correct offender. And the offender, the violating party, that is the unauthorized seller that's actually selling your product or violating your policies, not the marketplace that they're doing it on. Got to be very clear to be able to distinguish those two facts very, very, very clearly, okay? And then, guys, you've got to make sure that you're enforcing this across the board and using the right tools, personnel, to be able to make sure that you're able to uphold those first 6 steps and keep it fair and equitable for all parties that you team up with. And as long as you stick within those, I think that you can really build a successful brand and really keep it protected on the third-party marketplaces.